Wake up at dawn, coffee's brewing slow. Check the news, let the headlines flow. Black and white candles light up my screen. Patience is my saddle, keep my focus keen. 3/8 traps my rope, I'm ready to ride. Price pulls back soft, just a dip in the tide. Wait for the break, let it clear that line. Trade above the high and the profit's mine.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for April 28th, 2025. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, ready for arguably one of the busiest weeks of the earnings season coming up this week. So we're going to have to buckle up for some volatility. And also, I apologize for my little bit of a rough voice here this morning. Allergies seem to be getting the best of me at the moment. Let's take a look at what we've got going on this morning. In the overnight, if we take a look at Asian markets last night, well, we had kind of a mix, mostly higher. Shanghai was down slightly by $6.65. And Hong Kong was essentially flat, down $8.78. If we take a look at everything else, Australia was up modestly. The Nikkei up 134. India up 289, and South Korea just modestly higher overnight. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, European markets are bullish across the board. The DAX right now being up 152 points. The FTSE is up 26.5 points, and the CAC being up 64.5 points. U.S. futures, on the other hand, not quite so cheery. We've got the Dow futures at this very moment down 51 points. NASDAQ futures, let's see, looking down $12.50, just ticked down about $13, and the NASDAQ futures down $46 this morning. So little bit of bearishness here, but it's not looking too bad as we kind of have a huge anticipation of what's going to happen this week in earnings. So let's take a look at some other things. Right now, if we look at the bond markets, well, we are not much change here from Friday's close. 2-year bonds are at 3.77%. 10-year bonds are at 4.27%, and 30-year bonds at 4.72% this morning. If we take a look at the U.S. dollar, U.S. dollars, you can see kind of flat here this morning. Dollar futures are up about 10.5 cents here at the moment. Not a whole lot of movement there so far this morning. If we take a look at those cryptos here this morning, we've got crypto's coming in positive right now. Bitcoin up $699 a coin. Ether this morning is just slightly higher as well, up $10.20 a coin. Kind of a mix in those futures, are in those Bitcoin or crypto markets, I should say. Let's take a look at what's happening with oil this morning. Oil, right now, oil futures are down. If we take a look at XLE, XLE's kind of flat in here, but we've got oil futures down right at this moment, $47 cents a barrel at $62.55 a barrel, and Brent crude is down 37 cents at $66.50 a barrel. If we take a look at natural gas here this morning, we've got natural gas just slightly higher, had a little bit of a rebound there on Friday, pushing up just slightly, and as you can see this morning, just an ever so modest increase there on natural gas. If we take a look at precious metals here this morning, well, let's take a look at GLD. GLD just a tiny little bit of improvement. Right now up $2.70 an ounce on GLD at $3,301 an ounce. Silver this morning, however, just slightly lower. Right now down 7 cents, but interesting, we're seeing SLV trying to push up here. Right now, silver futures down, let's see, 28 cents at 33.30 an ounce. Copper this morning, copper just a little bit lower here today. We've got platinum up. And palladium is also gapping a little bit higher here this morning in those precious metals. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and really kind of dig into the details of price action, support, resistance, and trend. Well, first off, as you can see, we're kind of slipping into a little bit of a consolidation, and not really a big surprise there heading into such a big week of data here on the earnings front. Now, if we take a look, we're still in this wedging pattern here that I've drawn in the chart. And if the bulls can get something going, well, you can see the important thing here for those bulls would be to break through some of this resistance right in here. And I'm going to come clear over there, draw a line across. I think we need to see a break through that area. And if we can, then we have that opportunity, I think, to move on up and see if we can really test that big reversal candle here in the market to see if we can push on up toward the downtrend here in the diamonds. Now, I got to tell you, I think anything this week is possible. If the big tech giants report well, then we could easily see bullishness start to take over in the market and breaking down trends. However, if they happen to disappoint, and I think there is some real question on that, if they happen to disappoint, then that possibility that we could see those bears re-engage. So be kind of careful here, plan your risk carefully in the market. If we were to move lower today, if the bears have anything to say, well, a little bit of price support right through this area right here. And if those bears were to push back down through here, that would be a little bit of concern. We've got a little gap here that could be filled, and then, of course, back on down to the rising trend right here. So watch that carefully in the diamonds. If we take a look at our SPY, it has already broken out. A lot of hope on tech has pushed these stocks up, a tremendous amount of anticipation going into these earnings. And right now, everyone is pretty convinced they're going to be bullish, apparently, breaking through the downtrend here in the SPY. Now, watch this area right here. We've got price action resistance in the chart that we'll want to be paying attention to. And if we can continue that bullish action, well, you can see we've got some areas up here that we'll be watching in price resistance to see whether we can break on higher in that chart. If we were to see any bearish action in here, well, those bears pushing back, testing this upside trend, which is a fairly common thing to see if we do get a pushback. Test that upside trend as a support level to see if that can hold. If that does hold, then we're in good shape. If it were to give it up and we come on back, a little bit of price support right in here to be watching. Of course, below that, there's a bit of a gap, and then we'd be looking to see if we can break back through this little upside wedging pattern right in here on the SPY. Now, we do want to remember in these indexes, we are still very bearish in our technicals. We did get up through the 34 EMA here on on Friday in the SPY, and then just keeping in mind we're going to come into contact pretty quickly with that declining 50-day moving average. So watch that carefully. The Dow itself still hasn't quite made it up to that 34 EMA, and obviously we've got the 50 crossed down through the 200 days. So still very bearish on those. Our QQQ also with the big tech push here, getting a push right through that resistance, and we have breached on the SPY and the QQQ that big reversal candle. We are pushing back up in here into more dense consolidation areas or dense price action resistance areas here in the chart. So watch that carefully here in the QQQ. If the bulls can continue to find inspiration here today, then I would look for that push right on up here to see if we can kind of catch that dense area of price action that runs back and forth through the chart, goes all the way back over into here. So quite a bit of price action that we're going to need to push through if we can get some bullish action from those earnings. Now, if we take a look at the bearish side of things here today, if the bears were to have anything to say at all, and this morning, probably the best chance for the bears to have anything to say this week with, because we're kind of a light day compared to the days coming up in those big tech reports. If we push back, see if we can hold the top of that big white candle here. If that were to give it up, then maybe a push back down to see if we can test some areas of price support here in the chart. And then, of course, back down. That would be filling this gap, coming back down in here to see if we can hold that upside trend and gap support here in the chart. So watch that carefully. Again, technically in the chart, very, very close to the 50-day moving average. And I think there's probably a good reason to believe that we could test that 50-day even today in anticipation. But just keep in mind, if we can't breach up through that area, this would be a perfect area to be watching for that potential downtrend to come back into play as well. If we take a look at our IWM, well, IWM made it back up to its downtrend, just squeaked through that downtrend just a tiny little bit. If the bulls can continue to push here in the chart, then I would look for that break up here to see if we can deal with this price resistance in the chart. Now, keeping in mind that price resistance is fairly substantial. It runs all the way back over here in the chart. So we've still got quite a bit of work here on the IWM. But if we can break through here, then that looks like a very logical thing. We could fill that gap over here and test that resistance in the chart. Now, if the bears have anything to say, well, if the bears have anything to say, we've got that little support there in the chart. Maybe push back down and see if we can hold that area. If we push on below that, I think there's that chance we could fill the rest of this gap into that little upside trend on the chart. Breaking down below those areas obviously would be a concern. We've got our 50 crossing down through our 500 here in IWM and making this probably the most oversold index out there, but the one that just doesn't garner a lot of attention right now because we don't have any of the big tech giants in it. And keep an eye on that 34 EMA as well. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX had a nice little pullback there on Friday, so we're relieving that pressure. We're just below 25 handles in the VIX. Our next area of price support would be right in here, as you can see, right across that area, or right down in there around 23 handles. If those bulls can get something going there, pushing down into that area. You will want to keep in mind that we've got this upside trend in here as well. But after breaking this down here again, we're kind of in a very wild wedging pattern here on our VIX. And that uncertainty right now is pretty strong in the market. So watch that carefully if the bears find some reason to attack, we could see that spike right back up and maybe test some of these resistance levels in the chart and even push on through and see if we can get up here through that resistance in the chart. So watch that carefully here on our VIX. If we take a look at our T2122, this is a little bit problematic for us because we're so elevated in our T2122. T2122, we're in the bearish reversal zone, and we know we have stretched a long ways here just in the last few trading days. So watch that carefully here. If the bulls find inspiration, we still do have a little upside opportunity in there for them. If the bears, however, find opportunity in here, well, we know that we have a big opportunity to push back here in the chart. Particularly if we get any disappointing reports or lower guidance, things like that from those tech giants, we are set up for potential trouble if that were to be the case. If we take a look at our T2108, T2108 had a nice little day there on Friday. We did rally up through this resistance in the chart, so we have about 31% of the stocks up above our 40-day moving average. You can see we got that little hook here, unfortunately, on T2108, which would potentially hockey stick in the air. You go to the penalty box. We might watch for that potential of pulling back here if the bears get going. If the bulls continue to find that inspiration, I'm going to look for this next area up here around 40% will be a target up there for us to be searching for. You can see here in this chart, if I were to draw a downtrend, that's about where that 40% area is where we're going to contact that downtrend here in T2108. If we take a look at T2107, now our T2107, we have really made a nice improvement here as well, pushing up in the chart. Again, hockey stick in the air, not the best sign, but we're coming up in toward that downtrending area up here toward 25%. We've got a little resistance in here. If we can pop on up even further up here around 30%, that would be nice. Of course, if the bears have anything to say, we've got some support in here now, down around 20% if those bears were to push back here. There's that little upside trend as well. Maybe we could catch that as a little area of price support. Let's take a look at our T2101. Our T2101, unfortunately on Friday, we ended up putting that little hook up here in the air. Struggling with a little bit of breadth here at the moment. We, as the bulls pushed, we had a nice little lift here in that breadth on the last couple of days and that anticipation of earnings. But we're coming up into that downtrend, little hockey stick in the air. If we see a little bit of bearishness today, it shouldn't be too shocking. Just a little bit of rest and uncertainty as we wait for those big tech reports. And then we'll have to figure out, are we going to break on through with some buyer's breadth, or will that breadth really sink back here? So be careful here on these moves. Breadth has been acting kind of anemic here on the bullish side because of the blackout period, but yeah, we'll have to watch that closely. Our T20, whoops, I think that's it. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, we do have a few things that we'll want to be paying attention to as we move through the week. But today, pretty light. We've got the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Survey coming out. Prior was a negative 16.3 and production index was 6.0. Just a baseline to look at, no consensus on that number. We've got a 3-month bill auction and a 6-month bill auction, and that is it. Now we're going to run into the jobs numbers this week. We're going to get quite a few jobs numbers as we really pick up these earnings reports. International trading goods will start tomorrow. We've got retail inventories advance, wholesale inventories, Case-Shiller, home price index, we've got consumer confidence, and then that job openings report. As we move into Wednesday, when we're really ramping up those earnings reports, we're also going to be getting, along with mortgage applications and the ADP private payrolls report, we're going to end with, we've got a GDP number coming in, we've got a Treasury refunding in here, we've got employment cost, Chicago PMI, personal incomes and outlays number will be coming in. We've got pending home sales and production or petroleum status numbers to be paying attention to. On Thursday, we get jobless claims, PMI, ISM, construction spending, natural gas. We've got some bond announcements. Notice in here, no Fed speak. We're in the blackout period for the Fed. So keep that in mind. And then we've got motor vehicle sales, employment situation numbers, factory orders. So we've got a busy week of economic data in here and jobs data this week, along with all of these earnings reports. If we take a look at the earnings reports for today, however, well, it's not so huge. Taking a look in here on those numbers, let's take a quick peek. You can see in here we've got, for this morning, just a few. Domino's will be in there, Roper's in there for this morning, for those notables here in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we're going to be picking up quite a bit more. But you can see nothing in there, Rambus as a tech report, but nothing in there to be tremendously market moving. Probably going to be a lot of choppiness. I would guess there's going to be a lot of choppiness here today as we wait in anticipation for those earnings. But let's take a look at BKU here this morning. BKU gap down and trying to come all the way back here. Interesting price action in the pre-market there. DPZ, Old Domino's going a little bit lower here today. INMD, a little bit lower here on the day. RVTY, pop and drop, pulling back here this morning, but could be breaking that downtrend. And Roper, those are your notables for this morning, going just a little bit lower here on that. This afternoon, ABCB is in there, AMKR is in there, BRX, we've got CNO to be paying attention to, CR, CCR, CVI. Whoops, let's get those in order. There we go. CVI will be in there. NE, Noble will be in there. NUE, NOV, Rambus to be paying attention to. SSD, RIG will be in there. Waste Management and WWD. So keep an eye on some of those here this afternoon. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Probably as much as anything anymore is just that engagement with a video. So thank you very much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I do truly, truly appreciate it. Hey, I want to remind everyone that if you have never become a member of Right Way Options, we have a $7 trial going on. So if you're interested, run over to the Hit and Run Candlesticks website. Right on the front page, you'll find the link for that 7-day trial. You'll be able to be with us for a full 30 days. Check us out, see how that works out for you, and hopefully we can make you some money during that period of time as well. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any securities. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. Remember, anything is possible this week with these big tech reports. We could see zooming upside. We could see zooming downside. So make sure that you have your plans in place and make sure you're working hard to protect your capital. Be really careful with the fear of missing out in here. It could bite us hard if we get too carried away going one direction or the other on such an uncertain path forward here of these reports. Let's take a look at a few that I think are looking pretty good. BTU now, obviously, it hasn't quite made its move yet. If we look at our moving averages, we're still underneath that 50-day moving average here in the chart. But a nice little bullish pattern in here, and we're also getting some pretty good action in an indicator. It's called the balance of power. I'm not showing it here, but that balance of power showing pretty consecutive buying coming in here in this nice tight consolidation range. So I'll be watching to see if that can pop my alert in here. So keep an eye on BTU. Take a look at Consolidated Edison. Continues to hold up in here, looking pretty good. I think that's worth keeping an eye on. It did pull back just a little bit on Friday, breaking some of that support in here. But watch that carefully. We're seeing some pretty good strength in some utilities out there. Now, remember, it's going to report on 5/1, so watch that carefully. May not be able to hold or not. We're just not sure. And there's so many earnings coming this week, something you're going to have to really be paying attention to. Monster Beverage, nice little pullback here. Again, holding this support, trying to hammer in the pre-market. Watch that carefully again. Reporting on 5/1. You've got to be really careful with these potential trades. There's a lot of miners that continue to hold into very bullish patterns. Notice that we've got maybe a trend out in here. That's a long ways from the trend just yet, but I think that could be the outlier right here, and we may be coming actually close enough to the trend that I'd be watching this in here for that potential push to the upside. And we're seeing a lot of that in these miners, GDXJ, a lot of these in that potential pattern here where we could be drawing near that trend and looking for that upside potential move to come along. I think we need to be taking a look at PLTR. That had this nice little bullish pattern. This is what I always look for in a chart. We move up and then we rest back and looking for that potential entry into the trade. Unfortunately, it did it with a pretty nice big gap, which makes it higher risk. But that being said, nice little stretch here to the upside. I would be looking for a little bit of a rest or pullback now. I wouldn't want to chase this into this price resistance up here. Look for a little rest or pullback. Unfortunately, we do have this situation where this is going to report on 5/5. So not a whole lot of time here before that reports, and it could really change that chart a lot. So keep an eye on that. Still liking the way Costco is looking in here. Costco pushing up toward that downtrend. Get this little upside move or wedging pattern here in the market. If those bulls can hold on to this price support, we might, and we can get some bullish action in the market. We might see this pop right on through off of that trend. So watch that carefully on Costco. Walmart continues to look good. Pressing some resistance in the chart again, pushing up toward that resistance on the earnings on the 15th. If we can get that bullish action coming in here on the market, we might just right off of this little trend find that opportunity to push on through there on Walmart. Take a look at some stocks that, well, They are coming up out of bottoms here. URA, a nice little bullish move, breaking the downtrend, pushing up through here in the chart. Little rest back here, back to the trend. I'd be looking for that opportunity that might push on up. You can see we got through the 50-day moving average in here. So we have what we call a rounded bottom breakout pattern potentially developing here on URA. So watch that here, that little resting pattern for that move back up. If we look at UEC is doing the same, some of that uranium in here. So watch that carefully. A hold of that 50-day, we may get that move on through to the upside. CCJ might be another one to be paying attention to. Nice little stretch through that 50-day moving average. Remember, we got to keep an eye on all of these earnings. Going to report on the 29th tomorrow. We got 6.6 here on UEC. We've got, I'm not even showing the date on that one. Interesting, on URA. So watch those pretty carefully. We want to also remember, as we approach some of these big tech reports, remember, we didn't get a very good response here on earnings from IBM. We didn't get a very good response on earnings from Intel. It's Google that helped us push up in one of those big tech giants here. And one of the things I have to say about this one is we broke the downtrend in here and we popped through some resistance. Now the question is, can we hold up in this area? Can we break and hold up in here? If we can, then I would be looking for that next opportunity. Now, keeping in mind, it's possible this could come all the way back here to this trend, or we can consolidate over to the trend before it continues on up. So watch that carefully here in Google, trying to come back around to the upside. Let's take a look at Groupon here. Well, if I can make it come up, there we go. Groupon, nice little bullish pattern in here. I call this a pop out of the box pattern, pushing through to the upside, probably in anticipation of earnings coming in here in 5.8, but looking very, very bullish here at the moment. I think that's worth paying attention to. Palo Alto in here, breaking the downtrend, nice stretch through, little rest or pullback in here, sets up an opportunity, I think, for that upside move. So keep an eye on that. Quite a few things out here starting to show those signs of bullishness, including some gold and silver miners still holding up in there pretty well that we'll want to be paying attention to. Newmont Mining holding up in here. FCX breaking through this big downtrend. Now, we've done that before and not been able to hold, as you can see in here. What we need right now in this push up is make sure we can hold in here and then see if we've got that next potential push to the upside. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for participating. Truly, truly appreciate it. I want to wish you all the best, and I will see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Have a great day, everyone.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail, trading with heart where the profits prevail.